My name is Sean Newman. I'm one of the directors of Kalibre. So we're a professional services and software development company based out of Melbourne in Australia, and we've been around since about 2007. Prior to that, our consultants and members worked for, in some cases, Hewlett-Packard, that's in my case, and in other cases, Motorola and other organizations like that. So we've got a pretty long history in the monitoring and service level management space. And yeah, small team, there's 10 of us based across a couple of states within Australia, but we work right around the country. And in more recent times, we've been working in other parts of the world as well with these solutions. We've been partners since the inception of the company. And prior to starting Kalibre, I actually worked for Hewlett-Packard for a while and then worked for another partner organization for about 5 years. So I've got a history going back upwards of 20 years with Hewlett-Packard and Micro Focus.
Yep, excellent. So I'm going to talk about a particular solution that you guys have developed and is focused on the emergency services market. And obviously in that sort of area, I imagine there's having robust communications is really important. So I guess tell us a bit about the solution and what it does.
Yeah, so the solution was born out of the requirements that local customers came to us with around being able to monitor public safety communications networks. So these networks, they're quite complex. They have a radio network component, but they've also got transmission systems. They have a lot of applications running on servers. They've got various devices out at remote sites, including DC systems, shelter management systems, environmental systems, all of which they needed to have managed from a single pane of glass. It was a big challenge for them. And couple that with the need that most of these networks have government, state and federal government customers who have very, I guess, rigorous requirements around service levels and how to monitor and measure and then report on those. And so the solution that we developed uses the Micro Focus Operations Bridge Manager to bring all of that information together. So we integrate with all of these network elements, bring it all into a single view, and then apply the service health monitoring that's inside the OBM platform to actually measure the actual services that all this infrastructure is providing to the customers. We then couple that with other vendor software and software that we've developed internally within Australia to actually present views of that data to the end users of the network. So not just the service provider, but also to the actual agency members. So this might be, fire staff, police, ambulance members who are out in the field using the network. So they can actually use our system to see what's going on with the network, where they are, how it's performing, whether or not there are any service issues, that kind of thing.
So with the monitoring that you're doing, is it primarily around the communications, like the network traffic and devices, or it sounds like there are other aspects that come in as well in terms of physical environments? Like, you bringing all different sorts of things together, it sounds like?
It does. So in addition to the communication side of things, one of the most common issues that these networks have in terms of outages and faults is what goes on out at the remote sites. So these radio towers can be at the top of mountains or in all sorts of quite hard to get at places. And so the power supply, the environmental conditions, air conditioning, that kind of thing that's going on at those sites can have a big impact on the ability for these systems to continue functioning. And so we actually have telemetry for those systems as well. So we're monitoring aspects from a physical point of view at the sites, including temperature and power and all those kind of things, in addition to the things you'd expect, such as the network performance and the network availability. So all that ties together.
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot of data. So how do you kind of correlate that and then bring that into that single pane of glass kind of service view?
Yeah, that's we make heavy utilization of the OBM functionality there around events. So OBM is very powerful at being able to bring lots of different event types together and then correlate those and use various automation rules to govern how they're actually presented to the user. And then we couple that with the work that we do around performance metrics. So there's a large amount of metric data coming through into the system. And so we actually use our tools to consolidate that. Some of it's presented via the Ops Bridge, via the dashboards in there, and some of that's presented via our reporting systems and the Kalibre Insight dashboard as well. So there's quite a lot of work that goes into that, both on the event side, but also on the metric side as well.
Yeah. So I'm actually interested in that because you talked about the single pane of glass, and this comes up often in conversation of, can you get everything onto a single pane, or does it get too summarized? Do you have that sort of view as well as the drill downs to detail, or what's it like in reality?
Yeah, and that is one of the strengths of the solution, is that on the Insight dashboard side, we can actually provide those really high level views to the end user. So we look at the different user groups and say, well, what's important to them? The end user doesn't need that level of detail. They just need to know, is the radio network working where I am right now? And is it congested? Are there any faults? Then you go back into the NOC, and the NOC really do need to see everything. And so we really are able to get all the events from all the sources into one place. And part of the biggest, I guess, challenges when we roll these systems out and when we enhance them is trying to actually find the nuggets of real information in amongst a lot of data. So the events, there are tens of thousands of events that are coming through, and being able to sift through those and actually pick out the ones that are important to the services is the challenge. But we are able to do it with the tool set that we've got.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So is it just monitoring? Like, do you take action as well? What happens when you find a fault or an incident occurs?
Yeah, there's a few things that occur there. So we have business rules within the system itself that actually automatically escalate faults through to service management systems that enable the actual field staff to actually be rolled out and roll a truck out to site to start to repair things. We also feed it through into the Kalibre Insight service level management system, and that actually automates the customer notifications as well. So most of these contracts have pretty strict customer notification criteria and regimes to say, when a fault is detected, you have to let them know, you have to provide regular updates, you need to let them know when it's been resolved. And so the system actually automates all of that. And it also gives guidance to the guys in the NOC centers to say, okay, here are the faults you've currently got on the go, here are your timelines for getting these resolved, and helps them manage that process. So as well as actually, like you say, monitoring it, it's also providing that actual actionable automation to actually how it gets handled from that point. And also the reporting at the end of a month as well. Like, how did you go against your SLAs? Did you meet your SLAs, or were you compliant or not? We can actually also provide those reports. And we provide live views of that during the course of the month, so they can see how they're tracking before they get to the end of the month.
Okay. Kind of described it as obviously monitoring the networks, and public safety is really important. So where are you doing this sort of work? Is it just here in Australia, or you mentioned elsewhere?
Yeah, so it started out with networks around the country here. So most of the states around Australia are now running our systems, including Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia. They've all got multiple systems running across those networks. In addition to that, in recent times, we've actually deployed 3 systems into North America. That includes a statewide system in Missouri. And we're also in the middle of deploying a system at the moment to Algeria. So that's been interrupted, of course, with our current pandemic situation, but that's actually midway through as well. And there's a lot of interest from North America as well. In some regards, Australia has been, I guess, ahead of the curve on the service level management side of things, and about having SLAs to meet. And that's starting to ramp up in North America. And so there's a requirement for being able to actually consolidate the monitoring and then provide, central reporting on all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So does your solution only work on certain types of networks, or vendors in that space, or is it more kind of generic?
We've actually focused a lot on the Motorola radio networks as far as the radio network component, but the rest of the infrastructure we monitor around transmission systems, networks, servers, we have a pretty broad range of out-of-the-box functionality that we provide for common equipment that customers use, but we also have a standardized approach towards new equipment. The way it seems to work, or tends to work when we roll these solutions out, is maybe 70 to 80% of the infrastructure we're monitoring we've seen before, but there's always that special, particular devices that a certain customer is using. And so we have a standardized approach towards integrating those into the system as well. So, but on the radio side, it is focused on the Motorola radio systems at the moment.
Right. And do you run this as like a managed service, or is it more you help implement it and get it up and running and then hand it over to the customer to then operate and manage?
There's both operational models in use there. So we've had some customers where we've just deployed it and we've trained them up and they've said, yep, we're happy, we can just run this ourselves. to the other end of the spectrum, where we've actually provided a full turnkey solution, inclusive of hardware, software, deployment services, and ongoing solution support. So it really depends on the customer's requirements for how they want to run it and how hands-off or hands-on they want us to be.
Yeah, okay, that's great. This is a fantastic story, I think, around, particularly with the size of your team, for taking a value-added solution where obviously Micro-Focus technology is part of it, but it's bigger than that, and you've got your IP that builds on that as well. So I really like that. You touched on it already, but can I just get you to drill in and just summarize perhaps how the Micro-Focus and Operations Bridge kind of is used, and what are the core kind of areas of value, I guess, that it's delivering to your overall solution?
Yeah, so the Operations Bridge Manager is really a key part of the solution. It's providing that consolidation of the data into a single pane of glass, as I use that term a lot. So we're able to use the out-of-the-box functionality from OBM to bring in topology data on what we're looking at, how the network's connected together, all of the event data, so all the faults going on in the network, and also the metric data as well. So we make heavy use of that out-of-the-box functionality to bring it all together. And also the event correlation and automation we use quite heavily as well. And then sitting on top of all of that, service health monitoring. So actually modeling all of the business services that the customers are providing on top of this, and then actually showing in real time as those events come in, what the impact is on service health. So OBM really is a key part of that. And then that data is leveraged by our Insight platform to provide those web-based views to the end users of the network as well, and also to the reporting. So it all ties together, but it all feeds out of the Ops Bridge Manager.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. So, Sean, obviously, in Australia, we had a really bad bushfire season at the start of this year. And I'm sure the radio networks were under a lot of pressure. You talked about towers and your remoteness and challenges there. I guess any stories or experiences, from your perspective of, what happened in that time, and any insights to share with us?
Yeah, it was actually, we were sort of, I guess, to one side of this, but we were sort of called upon during that fire season, especially in New South Wales. They were having to roll out mobile radio, what they call cells on wheels, or COWs, to actually replace sites that had been burnt out. And so we were involved with them, helping them get those provisioned in the system and rolled out as fast as possible. And we also provided assistance with reporting and traffic management as well. So the tools in our system were helping them to manage radio traffic, because they found massive numbers of firefighters concentrated in very small areas really put a strain on the communication systems. And so their ability to see what was becoming congested in near real time through our system enabled them to react to that and basically roll out additional capabilities and additional capacity very quickly. So there's lots of war stories from through that period. And I guess lots of comments coming back to us from customers saying that our tools were instrumental in allowing them to manage their way through these fires. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, that is excellent. It's really good. Yeah. I do want to finish with a more lighthearted question. But what do you miss most about being in lockdown?
What I miss most? Probably just, to be honest, eating out, which is nothing to do with work or play or anything, but just the ability to, I can't remember the last time I had a restaurant meal. So, we've hit the takeaway pretty hard, and Uber Eats has had a bit of a workout as well, but just being able to sit in a restaurant with a nice meal and a glass of wine, I miss that a lot. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Sean. We'll leave it there. I really appreciate it. And that was great. So thank you very much.
No worries. Great. Thanks a lot, guys.